Transformers. Robots in disguise. From Diaclone and Microchange to Beast Wars and big budget blockbusters. This multimedia marketing empire has gone through so many iterations over the years, spawning countless toys, animated series, crossovers, and most importantly, video games. And that's what we're checking out tonight, whether it be good, bad, or just a little different. Time to roll out. Let's do this!
As I believe the Earthlings say, lay it on me, man.
The future of the Earth is in your hands.
New package, same product, losers. Let's do it! Beast mode!
Transformers made it big in the 80s, but as the decade rolled by, the novelty started to wear off. Car robots are a dime a dozen. It was time for something completely different. It was time to enter Beast Mode! While not the only Beast Wars game created, I wanted to check out a fighting game, Beast Wars Transmetals on PS1. The odds were against me with this one. Later PlayStation 3 models used software emulation to play old PS1 discs. Emulation won't work here, and neither did the busted PS1 I bought off eBay. Was it a problem with the game? Was it a problem with the hardware? Yes. After so much hassle and technical difficulties, I finally got it up and running. And even now, it will only work sometimes. There is no consistency. So, was it worth it? Let's find out. In this one-on-one 3D brawler, you'll take control of the Maximals and the Predacons, duking it out on the prehistoric Earth. The combat is pretty straightforward once you get past the chaos. My copy was set to hard mode by default, and it is just a total clusterfuck against the AI. But tone it down to normal, and it's perfect to pick up and play. Is it a refined competitive experience? No. Transmetals is all about turning into a crab and just clobbering people, while stage hazards like lightning strikes and lava blasts rain from above.
So here's this giant enemy crab.
My God!
Share in my agony, friend.
The presentation here is awesome. The full motion video cutscenes, the chrome, the techno-organic aesthetic. This whole game is just dripping with dank 90s energy.
Rampage. I'll put it into terms even you can understand. My plan is to lure the Maximals to our stronghold, the dark side. Then we beat them mercilessly. We crush, we smash. They'll be forced to retreat. And we follow them all the way to their base. Yes.
And I just cannot get enough of David K. as Megatron. He is just hamming it up here.
Are those your last words, Primal? I'll be sure to put them in my diary.
Now the actual gameplay, well, that's another story. It's quite janky and the moveset is pretty basic. No room for style or grace. It's a real button masher.
Alright!
Switching modes can feel very gimmicky, with the camera constantly cutting away from the action. Despite the flashy visuals, they play mostly the same with some unique attacks. In bipedal form, you can also hold down the left bumper to enter Vehicle Mode. Not your standard beasties. Transmetals often had these tertiary modes with bolted-on wheels or tank treads. They're like the Toa Nuva of Transformers.
You want a piece of me?
According to the manual, you can block incoming hits, in theory, but I never figured it out. My strategy is as primitive as these earth creatures. It's kill or be killed. No holding back. These super moves are cheap and overpowered, but feel so right to pull off. Like Megatron and his quote-unquote storm of vengeance blowing up the entire map. It's borderline game-breaking. Oh, and since I have the manual, why don't I show that off? Complete with character bios and flavor text. It's a dying art.
Yes.
If you're playing solo, there's not much to do outside the main campaign, versus mode, and survival. Either way, all fights essentially play out the same. But to keep things interesting, there are some cool unlockables. Bonus characters like Black Arachnia and Tigatron can be accessed through cheat codes.
I do not enjoy causing destruction.
There's 4 in total. They're essentially Echo Fighters with new voice lines. And in the extras menu, you can listen to the game's soundtrack, voice lines,
A splendid triumph.
and flip through old stock photos of toys and CG renders. I am a sucker for this era of 3D art. It's a real time capsule. Transmetals is held back by so many technical limitations, but it definitely stands out as its own thing. If you can find a way to make it work, it's quite the novelty.
Now we Autobots and our allies defend the human race from an evil it knows not.
Hot on the heels of the second live-action movie, this interactive adaptation screeches onto the scene like a flaming convoy hauling nothing but guns, Playboy magazines, and Mountain Dew. It's Transformers Revenge of the Fallen on PS3 and Xbox 360. The title Revenge of the Fallen is simply a misnomer because Collateral Damage is the name of the game. Blast your way through Autobots, Decepticons, fuel tanks, museums, unarmed civilians? Who needs Linkin Park when you got mindless self-indulgence? Know what I'm saying? Choose your faction and get to work. The campaign takes you on a globe-trotting adventure to different locations from the film. Each level is a semi-open world sandbox to roam around and complete objectives.
Additional Decepticons remain to be found.
It's kind of like a kaiju movie from the monster's perspective, smashing up the place, climbing atop buildings, and tearing through the streets with reckless abandon.
Waste the Decepticons.
I do appreciate the driving controls here. They're a little slippery, but much more like a traditional racing game, using the triggers to accelerate and drift. From here, you can launch yourself into a melee attack or a high jump to get some sick air. The level of verticality does keep things interesting, but I started to lose my patience with enemy AI that's constantly running away from you while returning fire. Take out an enemy scaling a building, and you'll get this. Iced Climber. Oh, what's next? If you shoot a motorcycle and blow it up, will it say, Ignite Bike? No. There are no motorcycles in this game. Pathetic. Between missions, the Autobots convene at this military base. Ironically, the whole story and presentation is so mundane. Just another day in a war without end.
Ironhide, what's your assessment of our most recent battle?
We are trying to move too quickly. Our performance is sloppy.
Agreed. Too many secondary objectives are being ignored.
Feels like I'm watching the cold, calculating corporate board meetings that conceived of this schlock. They actually comment on your performance. Speed, accuracy, secondary objectives. It's annoying, as if I'm playing this to get a good grade.
That's Ironhide, you found him! You'll need to use your backup power cells to re-automate his mainframe.
I was gonna go all Autobot on this one, but so many dull escort missions turned me away.
Someone had to say it. That last mission was like watching paint dry.
The game isn't too difficult, but if you die, you gotta start the level all over. Some of these can be a real grind, so I defected and joined the Decepticons. The two campaigns are virtually identical, just from a different perspective. I'd say you'll have more fun if you can let loose and crank up the destruction. Visually, it has not aged well. Graphics aside, the color palette is often muddy and washed out. That was definitely a trend at the time. And the frame rate can really take a hit on my old PS3. Your mileage may vary. It's much less noticeable when you're in the driver's seat. There's some fun unlockables here too, like cheat codes, the ability to free roam levels at your own pace, concept art, and they even threw in full episodes of the classic cartoon.
No matter how many times I see it, it's always outrageous.
Might seem like a cheap thing to pack in, but this was no doubt someone's first experience watching it. For better or worse, I didn't know anything about Transformers before these movies, but look at me now. Don't talk to me, I'll tell you all about the Forge of Solus Prime. Revenge of the Fallen can feel limited, with recycled missions and phantom walls trapping you in the same routine. But its freedom of movement, letting you run wild within those confines, turns it into an urban playground in short bursts. If you're feeling trigger happy, this one's for you.
Decepticon final objective complete. Citywide chaos achieved. Significant human casualties. Mission successful.
The Nintendo DS was no stranger to shovelware. Its mainstream appeal, portable nature, and limited hardware made it so cheap to develop for, virtually any intellectual property was fair game. It was even common practice to release two versions of the same title. Much like Pokemon, we saw Autobot and Decepticon variants for movie tie-ins. But that's enough Bayformers for now. How about something a little more stylized? Transformers Animated. Gotta love that opening and glorious 256 by 192 resolution.
We'll need to split up. Prowl, you check on that Decepticon signal. Ratchet, stay here on the monitors. Bulkhead and Bumblebee, you're with me at the robot factory. Let's move.
In a sea of third-person action games, this one's a little different. A 2D puzzle platformer controlling multiple characters. Remember Lost Vikings? Me either, I hope they find them eventually. In the meantime, you'll take command of Team Prime and their unique abilities. It really matches up with their roles in the show.
Step aside and let a pro show you how it's done.
Bumblebee is quick and nimble. He's the one rushing into action, scouting ahead of the pack. He's got his stingers to incapacitate enemies and charge up generators. Bulkhead is the tank. Slower than the rest, but stronger as well. Smashing through blast doors, moving heavy objects, and taking out drones with his wrecking ball.
I'll take it from here, Bulkhead.
And Optimus is a reliable, well-rounded type. He can still get around with his grappling hook and reach otherwise inaccessible switches by throwing his Energon axe. The team dynamic works well enough. No one Autobot can tackle all obstacles. That can take some patience for sure. Swapping characters is snappy, but you won't see much creative problem solving here. It can get a little stale with constant backtracking, and you gotta stick together, especially in later stages. Things start off simple enough, but levels can quickly become sprawling and confusing. I got caught in a tangle I just could not get out of. Bumblebee's trapped under these hydraulic platforms, but he's got the power of the generator to move them. Optimus can't do anything but grapple around, and Bulkhead's on the bottom floor with nowhere to go. It's moments like these that will make you want to call it quits.
Elevator going up.
this wouldn't be a DS game without some second screen action. So how's it used? Well, in somewhat unconventional fashion, all the action is on the bottom screen while the heads-up display is up top. You use the stylus to aim your attacks with precision. This is essential for many puzzles, like drawing a path to throw Prime's axe, or maybe just aiming at something the D-pad can't pinpoint otherwise. Transformation has nothing to do with navigating these mazes, so to mix things up, sometimes you'll play as vehicle mode in an on-rails driving minigame. It's okay.
I'll take it from here, Bumblebee. Your turn, Bulkhead!
Transformers Animated is very much a square peg in a square hole type of game. What you see is what you get, beyond a few new challenges along the way. Some late game mechanics like this magnetic crane or gravity funnels have a little variety here and there. Taking out enemies is easily the weakest link. They're mostly just here to slow you down until you get to the final boss. That's right, Megatron. Much like the rest of the game, instead of sheer brawn, you've got to work together to outsmart him. Not the best around, but I can appreciate one of the few TF games with a real emphasis on teamwork. Now if only I could have my own official video game.
Yeah, us in a video game. Like that could ever happen.
And yet?
Nah.
Victory! Atlas wins again. Derek Wyatt of East Gotham City, I dominate you.
Transformer! 高速ジェットと巨大タンク、驚異のトランスフォーム合体。ついに現れた最強のデストロン、オーバーロード。今、地球が危ない。トランスフォーマー破壊大使、オーバーロード。
The year is 2010. Location? San Diego Comic-Con. Hasbro has just revealed footage of their latest Transformers series, Transformers Prime. It was the perfect blend of cinematic flair, cool characters, and a more grounded tone that shed new light on the same old conflict. I remember watching the teaser trailer on repeat and just admiring these slick new character designs. I was hyped. In 2012, an official video game was released for the Wii and Nintendo DS, but it was also a launch title for a new system, the Wii U. Nintendo's biggest failure since the Virtual Boy. At least financially, it did have some great games. Wasn't expecting much from this one, but it's a pretty solid 3D brawler. You got a handful of self-contained missions taking on the Decepticons, mashing away with some basic combos and switching to vehicle mode for a big wind-up attack. You do have a blaster, but it's mostly used for chipping away at enemies from a distance before landing a killing blow. Your heavy attack doubles as a shield breaker. Melee attacks just feel so sluggish. You're supposed to use your own shield to block incoming blows, but sometimes bosses will use heavy attacks to break your own shield, and you're left with no wiggle room to maneuver. It's just like taking turns hitting each other. You gotta commit to every movement cycles in advance, and frankly, I just don't have the patience for that.
Ugh, so that's why it feels like my dents have dents in them.
Luckily, you don't gotta worry about that all the time. Just get in the gear and kick some Decepticon tailpipe. The whole selling point of the Wii U was this tablet controller hybrid, the gamepad, which is never used much here besides some tilt-controlled driving sequences. Mostly a second screen, but collect enough triangles and you can tap the touchscreen to power up. I love using this special as Ratchet. He gets a giant wrench and glows neon green. I just imagine he's roid raging on synthetic energon like that one episode.
I'm a bit stronger than I used to be.
Now, I'm mostly playing the Wii U version for its superior resolution, but it didn't really take advantage of the hardware, as it's basically the standard Wii version in HD. Come to think of it, all versions of this game are essentially the same, just scaled down for their respective hardware. Even on the DS, it's kind of impressive and does explain some of the technical limitations. I guess you can't have it all, not on this budget. But that didn't stop them from bringing back the all-star voice cast. This one really nails the tone, like playing through an episode of the show.
You sure those readings are correct, Raph?
Absolutely. I can't tell what's causing it, but something's kicking the Dark Energon readings right off the chart. And it's coming from the same place as all those Decepticon signals.
Then there's no time to lose. Autobots, are you ready?
Just let me at them.
Hey, be careful out there, okay?
Whatever.
Not a particularly memorable one, but an episode nonetheless. The whole game is just hyping up the return of this legacy character, Thunderwing.
I am the envoy of Unicron the Destroyer. Unicron, who summoned me across the vastness of space. Unicron is my one and true master. You are nothing.
You'll be facing him along with the rogues gallery of other iconic villains. The boss fights mostly play out the same, shooting on foot as they fly around before going in close for some heavy metal brawling. Knockout can't fly, so he just spins around like a deranged Beyblade. Unfortunately for him, I too have mastered the art of spinjitzu.
Uh-oh.
My favorite is the Soundwave fight. He totally embraces this evil DJ persona, it's great.
A force shield?
Speaking of music, this entire segment you've been listening to music from the game. I often find these tracks way too epic for what's going on. It's pretty generic too. Why? Because they actually use stock music for this one. Yeah, it really makes you feel like an epic fantasy adventure. Now, despite being a fairly short game, I found myself losing interest after just a few levels. You'll be relying on the same 3-hit combos and little else, while scenery and set pieces get recycled to fill out the runtime. And when it's all said and done, none of the events leave any meaningful impact on the story whatsoever.
Yep. It was just a matter of knowing the secret of all TV shows. At the end of the episode, everything's always right back to normal.
But it's not over yet. You can face off against a friend in local multiplayer battles. Yeah, remember when games had split-screen functionality? Online servers may be temporary, but couch co-op is forever. Not that the combat has improved from single player, but you can play as Decepticons in this mode. Although akin to a Cybertronian slap fight, it's a welcome feature nonetheless. We'll be back with more Transformers games after these messages.
Return to the Transformers.
Hi, 皆さん、今日もワールドファイターズの時間がやってまいりました。
はい、司会はこの俺、無情と。
新人アナの春菜です。
What do you get when you take Super Smash Bros., WarioWare, 3 Japanese entertainment conglomerates and put them in a blender? Grotesque body horror? Not this time. It's DreamMix TV World Fighters on Nintendo GameCube. A crossover party fighting game featuring Optimus Prime and Megatron. So it's technically a Transformers game, you know, in the same way Smite, World of Warships, and Splatoon are Transformers games. Aw yeah, remember the Transformers Splatfest in Splatoon 1? What a time to be alive. I was there, and so was my Squid Kid rocking his Decepticon graphic tee. This Japan exclusive featured characters from Hudson, Konami, and Takara. Sure, you can play as Convoy, but you also got Bomberman, Solid Snake, the kid from Beyblade. It truly was a DreamMix. Quite similar to Super Smash Bros., but instead of focusing on ring-outs, knocking your opponents off the stage, the goal is to collect the most coins. Right out the gate, it's a mad scramble to obtain as many coins as possible before throwing down in this platform fighting arena. These heart-shaped coins double as your health, so you gotta keep yourself alive before a rival steals your soul. This here's no nuanced fighter, it's much more casual. You got just a few basic attacks, a 3-hit combo, a grapple so you can toss characters around, and a unique special move. It pretty much encourages you to spam as many cheap shots as possible, and some characters are blatantly more powerful than others. This Barbie girl may look innocent, but she can literally steal your life force, siphoning your hearts to her own power supply. The whole premise of DreamMix TV is based around this game show of the same name, with these two energetic hosts, Mujo and Haruna, bringing together an eclectic ensemble of characters from different games and toy lines in a desperate attempt to boost ratings and save their show from cancellation. I love these cutscenes in the story mode, they really add a lot of character and personality. I think this could have spun off into its own series. Too bad network television is dead. Like any good crossover, the main appeal is the diverse roster. Other notable fighters include Simon Belmont, Master Higgins from Adventure Island, Twin Bee, Yugo Ogami from Bloody Roar, and the Moai from Gradius.
Doesn't look that tough to me. Seems kinda slow, actually.
He's a powerhouse of destruction. Careful he doesn't flatten you. Snake, do you copy? Snake! Snake!
Probably most relevant to this video is M121 Mason from Microman. Before Transformers, there was Diaclone and Microchange. Diaclone was all about transforming vehicles, while Microchange consisted of regular household objects. You know, stuff like watches, cameras, cassette players, guns. Before all that, there was Microman. None of this would have been possible without the innovations and mechanical design of these classic toys. So, gotta give props for kicking it old school.
Mini cool old man.
Taking shape during the peak of the Combiner Wars in 2015, it's Transformers Devastation, an original character action game developed by none other than Platinum Games. You'll recognize their signature blend of high-octane action from titles like Bayonetta, Mad World, Vanquish, Anarchy Reigns, and my personal favorite, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance.
I think it's time for Jack to let her rip.
After so many Transformers games with half-baked combat, this one finally nails it. The movement is so fast-paced and fluid. You'll be revving up head-on into the fray, dodge rolling out of harm's way, just to follow up with a mid-air truck combo. Timing is key, as there's a sweet spot during telegraphed attacks you'll use to turn the tables. Vehicle modes are integrated seamlessly. Zipping around the map or slamming down Decepticons are mere extensions of your moveset.
Here's my retort! Hey, watch the pace!
I'm going to dig your grave, Autobots.
You gotta be kidding with that!
Team Prime's got 5 Autobots to choose from. You unlock each one over the course of the story mode. It's a pretty good roster, with some variety in battlefield control and movesets. For example, you got Wheeljack playing up his role as the scrappy mechanic, wielding wrenches in battle or crafting improvised explosives that deal surprise elemental damage. And Grimlock's here too. He's quite the Dino Breaker himself and plays by his own rules.
The Grimlock beat you up!
Visually, it's very much a throwback to the Generation 1 cartoon, with a bit of Dreamwave comics thrown in for good measure. Heavy cell shading and glossy highlights just make the characters pop against these already vibrant environments. Might be one of the best looking games on this list. The whole production is extremely polished down to the in-game HUD and transitions between battles. The only exception is these emblem animations. Way to use bevel and emboss.
Megatron must be stopped.
What are we waiting for? Follow me. My services appear to be required.
Back on the Autobot arc, you can switch characters, choose your loadout, and upgrade your arsenal and abilities. As simple and effective as the combat is, the leveling system is anything but. In the field, you'll collect dozens of marginally different weapons to combine and swap out later. On top of that, in-game currency can be spent on improving your stats, learning new moves, and even researching and developing passive abilities. Seems straightforward on paper, but this system is spread across so many menus with much of it feeling superfluous. Basic moves like reversals and parries are hidden in Wheeljack's lab. But hey, at least I can fabricate this, enhanced radar.
Fascinating! Let me see!
I love how this crafting minigame implies Wheeljack has no idea what he's doing, and any useful inventions are the result of dumb luck. How relatable.
Sometimes I impress myself.
This is our home now, Megatron. We should respect it.
No matter, Prime. I have no interest in destroying Earth. But I'm not opposed to making a few, shall we say, improvements?
Now the storyline. Almost forgot, it's your standard Saturday morning hijinks. The plot is forgettable, but the characters aren't. Much of the original G1 cast reprises the roles, really bringing their A-game here, and the music does not hold back.
You beat Moonmaster. Now, see if you can beat me!
It's challenging too. Strikes a great balance between punishment and power fantasy, really pushing your limits on higher difficulty. It will test your mettle without being too grueling.
That was too close.
Once I got used to rolling with the punches, I really had a blast. So, only one thing to do. Sit back, crank up the volume, and prepare for devastation.
Megatron and his Decepticons are already here.
And creating hurricane force winds like they're trying to sweep the city clear!
Autobots! Hit them until they turn to dust! Come on!
You're gonna have to tangle with me!
I, Starscream, will show you true power!
You're defending byproduct at best. I will restore Cybertron and retake the galaxy. And I have the courage to make the right decision. Till all are one.
What? No!
All next week at 5:30, Johnny Quest packs his bags.
What kid?
And Tsunami goes to war.
We've got a full-scale threat attack!
Open fire!
For 1 week only.
To your stations, quickly!
Beast Wars. All next week at 5:30. Transformers 90s style. Only on Toonami.
Proximity alert. Proximity alert.
Flash.
By Edison.
良い子のみんな集まれ
ありえないキャラたちが大集合ワイワイバトルだドリームミックス TV ワールドファイターズ